Brita, and welcome to my kitchen. I want to wish the Instant Pot 101 Beginners Group a very happy birthday, and thank you for inviting me to your party. Today we're going to be talking about making thick spaghetti sauce in your Instant Pot or pressure cooker, and making some lazy lasagna over here. So give me a shout out, tell me who you are, where you're from, and if you have any questions, I have my husband who's a moderator here that will help us with your questions. I've got my meat and my sausage cooking right here, and so I'm going to turn that off for just a second, just keep the steam down a little bit, and I will start with my lasagna recipe first. So to get going, I'm going to turn my camera down a little bit here so you can get an overhead shot. Right there. And we're going to go ahead and start. Now, cooking pasta with your pressure cooker, we're going to start with the water first. You always want to start with your thin ingredients and then add just a little bit of oil. This will keep your noodles from sticking together. Then, for the lasagna part, we're going to use broken noodles in here. These are not oven-ready noodles. These are just regular noodles, and you just simply break them right in the pot there and give it a quick stir. You want to get these noodles coated and with water and oil so they don't stick. And today I'm making half a recipe. You can cut this recipe in half because it makes a lot. So get those noodles coated right there. That's all you need to do. Then the next thing is going to add your sauce. This is 3 cups of the pasta sauce that I'm making today. It's been frozen and measured, and just dump it right in the middle there. You want to leave some room around the outside to allow the liquid to create a steam and your pot to come to pressure. Then we're going to put the lid on. The easiest way is look for this notch, match up this notch here, set it, close your valve, and put it on high pressure for 6 minutes. For some of you that might be the manual button, for some of you that might be the pressure cook button. So pushing that button and reducing the time down to 6 minutes. How I got 6 minutes was looking at the box. The box says to cook for, let's see right here, it says 12 to 14 minutes. Cooking pasta, you take half the cook time on the package, and that's the time you use. Plus we're going to use a controlled quick release, and I will show you what that looks like in just a minute. So this is started. The next thing I'm going to start is my sauce here. Sauce, I have here 91% lean ground beef and sausage. The sausage I just cut in half and put it in here, and this is a chop stir. I really, really like this tool. It's great. It chops everything all up in there. The next thing I want to do is build up the flavor of my sauce. Cooking under pressure has a lot of moisture in there, and sometimes you need to put extra seasonings in there. This is one tip I'm going to show you how to boost the spices in your sauce. We're going to add some oregano, basil, this is Italian seasoning, some salt and pepper, and we're going to stir that. The oil that gets hot reacts with the spices in your seasonings and actually blooms them and makes them more fragrant. So we're just going to stir that in there for just a minute until you can start smelling those seasonings. The next thing I want to do is add my onions. Now, this is onions that have already been chopped and put in the freezer. I try to freeze as many things as I can. I freeze my cheese, I freeze my garlic, I freeze my onions, which makes it very, very easy and very, very quick. Now, saute on this particular cooker has 3 different settings. The low setting or the left setting is more for sweating the mushrooms or onions or vegetables in your dish. The normal setting is more for softening and sauteing, and the more setting, the highest setting, is for browning. I use the higher setting here to brown my ground beef and my sausage. So the next thing is all those onions go in there. Give it a stir, and they will start to soften a little bit. And the next thing is garlic. You've got to have garlic in your Italian sauce. This is my frozen piece of garlic. I put it in a garlic press. Squeeze it out. Scrape it off. And this particular recipe is going to use 2 cloves of yummy garlic. You can hear it sizzling, it's going. Now, when you're cooking with anything that has a tomato-based sauce, one thing you need to be really, really careful for is the burn error. Tomato sauces will burn. So what I've done is I have strained my tomatoes. These are the Cento tomatoes right here. And I've strained them, and I've got the liquid right here. This is going to be the liquid in my sauce. Having a thin liquid like tomato juice or broth or water is what is going to build the steam and pressure in your cooker. Always start with the thin sauces and layer up to your thicker sauces. So, give this one more stir. Onions are softening up nicely. Here comes my reserved tomato juice. And this is also what is called deglazing. If you have any browned bits from your sausage or your ground beef, adding a liquid and stirring, scraping the bottom will take the fond or the browned bits off of your bottom of your cooker and will help your dish come to pressure. So there's my tomato juice. This is Worcestershire sauce. I hope I said that correctly. I never know how to pronounce it. But this brings an umami or an earthy taste to your ground beef recipes. A little bit goes a long ways. Salt and pepper. And this is just a touch of sugar. When you're cooking with tomatoes, they have a lot of acid in it, so just a little bit of sugar balances out the acid in your tomatoes. So I've layered things with the liquid and with my seasonings, and the next step comes the thicker ingredients. You can stir at this point, but after this point, do not stir. That's really, really important. You want to keep that thin layer of liquid at the bottom. This is my tomato sauce. It's just canned tomato sauce. Goes right there, and now you can see the liquid is still around the outside there. Then comes the thicker part of my canned tomatoes, right on top. Do not stir. And tomato paste. Tomato paste is very, very thick and concentrated and will bring an amazing flavor. And here's my other tip. I open up both ends of the can of tomato sauce there, which makes it really easy to get every last drop out. If you're not using the whole can of tomato sauce, a great tip is to measure out your tomato sauce, your tomato paste, and using a small cookie scoop and just scooping it out on a plastic tray or a freezer container and freezing it, and then you have just the right amount of tomato paste for your recipe. You can also find tomato paste in tubes, which work great. Still, no stirring at this point. And my mama always said, use a bay leaf. Gotta have that in there. That adds another earthy taste to your recipe. So now it's time to close the pressure cooker, lining up the notch. You want to make sure that your seal is seated all the way around here. That's really important. Close it. Close your pressure valve. This is venting and this is sealing, so make sure your pressure valve is there. If you have the Ultra Instant Pot, you don't have to worry about this. This does it automatically. Now my recipe says we're going to be cooking this on 5 minutes at high pressure. So we're going to turn the saute off, manual or pressure cook, and choose a time for 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. All right, this cooker is still going. I can feel the water in there bubbling and getting going there. The float valve right here has not come up to pressure yet, but it will shortly in just a couple of minutes. So we're going to put the camera right back up while this is cooking. And take my glasses off so I can see.
Explain what you're making.
I'm sorry, what?
Explain what you're making.
Explain what I'm making. This is my lazy lasagna recipe. I'm cooking the noodles in here. And this on this pot on your right is my thick spaghetti sauce. I used to buy this kind of stuff. It was cheap, 79 cents a can. But you know what? This stuff tastes better. It's awesome. It will make your kitchen smell like an Italian kitchen. And you will have people coming over and saying, wow, what does that smell? That smells amazing. That is so good. Now, as far as the lasagna recipe, there are some fantastic recipes out there that use a springform pan, and they're about 7 inches or 8 inches, depending on the size of your cooker. They're great. However, they only make a small amount. And I had some readers asking me, well, can I stack my pans or can I make a larger amount? What can I do? And I thought, you know what? I make macaroni and cheese in here, and then there's hamburger helper that uses broken up or little tiny lasagna noodles. Why not just make this all in one pot? So that's what I came up with, the lazy lasagna, and it's great. It's not soupy, and it's thick, and it serves a lot. This recipe will serve between 8 and 10 people. Now I can see my pressure valve is coming up to pressure, and my cooker still says on, so that'll be ready in just a couple minutes to cook there. Tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised here in Utah, and I have 2 boys, and my mother had a pressure cooker all my years of growing up. She had a stovetop pressure cooker, so I've been exposed to pressure cooking, and she would make her soups and her stews and mashed potatoes, and one time she made mashed potatoes on the stove. I think it's when we were camping or something. And we said, these potatoes taste different. We really don't like them. And she said, well, I cooked them on the stove. And that is when I knew that when you pressure cook, it has an amazing flavor. It keeps all the flavors in there. And mashed potatoes are no exception. You need to try that sometime. It is really, really good. So when I got my first pressure cooker when I was married, and I used it for many, many years, and about 9 years ago I got my first electric pressure cooker. It was a Cuisinart. And that's when I started really enjoying pressure cookers, the safety features that are built in, and the fact that I don't have to take a hot stovetop pressure cooker off the stove and put it to my sink and let the water cool it down. You've got that quick release in there. The outside of the pressure cooker is, warm to the touch, so there's no risk of burning or anything, and it's just, using an electric pressure cooker has been so, so nice. I've really, really enjoyed having it. And I've enjoyed using electric pressure cooker for the last 8 years, and then a little over 2 years ago, I was researching pressure cookers and found out that Instant Pot has a pressure cooker with a yogurt setting, and that really intrigued me. So I purchased this pressure cooker about 2.5 years ago, and I started making yogurt in it, and it's so great because I don't have to babysit the milk on the stove or put it in my slow cooker or put it in my convection oven. It does everything from start to finish all in one pot except sticking it in the fridge. So I really enjoyed making yogurt using the electric pressure cooker. But if you have a pressure cooker that doesn't have a yogurt setting, don't worry about it. There is a workaround for that. So tell me, what are some of your favorite things that you like to cook in your pressure cooker? And if you have any questions, the spaghetti sauce. You may be wondering, the ingredients are already cooked. The tomatoes are cooked, the meat is cooked. Why are you cooking it in the pressure cooker? Well, the pressure cooker has a unique way of infusing all the flavors into your dish. So while this spaghetti sauce recipe only takes, 5 minutes? Yeah, 5 minutes. It will give your spaghetti sauce that all day simmered deep flavor, which will be amazing. So you need to give it a try. If it makes too much for you, you can always cut it in half. Straining that can of tomatoes gave me about a cup of liquid. I've tried a couple of different brands of tomatoes, and sometimes they have more liquid and less liquid. One of the best tips I can give you if you're brand new to pressure cooking is to follow the recipe as closely as you can with the ingredients that they have in the recipe. After you've done making the recipe, jot down the notes of what worked well, what did not work well, and what changes you would make in the future. Then you have your own recipe book that has, you know what, I didn't like how much basil was in this recipe, I would reduce it down, or my noodles were just a little too firm, I would add another minute to the cook time. That way you have a personalized recipe that works just for you. So, do we have any questions?
Why don't you stir the liquids up first or after you start?
Okay, that's a great question. Someone asked why I don't stir the liquids after I start cooking. Because you have that liquid layer at the bottom, and then you've got your meat in there, and then you've got your thicker liquids on top, and then the thickest on top, which was the tomato paste. If you were to stir that in there, your thin liquids would not be thin anymore. They would be thicker, and thicker liquids do not create the steam needed to create pressure. And because of that, you will get the burn error if you stir. So resist the temptation to stir. I know when you're on the stove, you want to do that and stirring and smelling and tasting. Pressure cooking is a little bit different. You have to follow the directions to keep the liquids on the bottom, your thicker liquids in the middle, all the way up to the top, and do not stir. That's really important for like my one pot pasta recipe. I have the water, I have the noodles, and then I measure my ingredients. I started doing that because I was seeing so many people saying my spaghetti was really soupy or didn't have any flavor. Well, that's because not every jar of spaghetti sauce is the same size. This is like, 20 ounces, and this is like 16 ounces. And pasta follows a formula. The formula for pasta is done by weight. You have 4 ounces of pasta with 8 ounces of liquid. The liquid can be water, chicken broth, or some other thin liquid, but usually water or chicken broth. So 4 ounces of pasta, 8 ounces of water or broth, and then half the cook time on the package. This was 12 to 14 minutes, half would be 6 minutes. If you want it al dente, you would subtract a minute. Or if you want it a little bit softer, you would add a minute. So it really depends on your personal preference there. So my one pot spaghetti recipe actually measures the ingredients. This recipe for my lasagna, I have 3 cups of sauce. There I measured my water, I weighed my lasagna noodles. Actually, it was a 16-ounce package of lasagna noodles. I just counted how many they were and cut them in half because I'm making a half a recipe. If you use the entire box of lasagna noodles, it will make a large batch of lasagna. Another important thing to remember is the more ingredients you have in your pressure cooker, the longer it will take to come to pressure. This pot here on the right here that has my lasagna in it, lasagna noodles, has 2 minutes left. The pot on my left has already come to pressure. Flow valve is up, and now the pressure valve is a little bit quiet. My display still says on. When your flow valve comes up, that locks your lid to keep you from opening it. That's a safety feature that many of these newer pressure cookers have. And it reaches pressure, but it needs to stay at pressure for about a minute before the countdown goes down. So you see the flow valve go up, the steam has stopped from your pressure valve, and you're looking at your display going, it's not counting down. What do I do? Is it working? It's working just fine. Just give it a minute, and then it will start counting down from the time you set. 6 minutes, 5 minutes, all the way down. And after the cook time, it will have like a keep warm feature on there. You can turn that on or turn that off, but I like to keep it on because if I'm distracted doing something else, I can glance at my pressure cooker and it'll say LOO2, which means it's been in the keep warm for 2 minutes. And I need to either use the time natural release, which is however many times, like for my pot roast recipe, it uses a natural pressure release NPR for 15 minutes. When my display on my Instant Pot or pressure cooker says L015, that tells me it's been in the keep warm mode for 15 minutes, and then I can just open up the valve or do a quick release. There is a timer for my lasagna noodles. So what I'm going to do is what's called a controlled quick release. I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to bring the camera down. Okay. Controlled quick release simply means toggling this pressure valve open and shut, because some pasta will have a lot of starch in it, and if you open this all the way, you may have steam and starch spewing out. So this is a controlled quick release. There's no starch coming out, so I think I'm okay to keep it open. It could take like a minute to come down to pressure. It really depends on how much liquid you've got in there. I know the first time I did this with my good friend Janet, showing her how to use a pressure cooker, I think the first thing I taught her was how to make hard-boiled eggs. And the first time I did a release, it scared her. She just nearly jumped out of her skin. And I forgot to tell her that this can be quite noisy. So if you're doing this for the first time, just be prepared. If you have pets or animals, that this is loud initially for about a minute. And then it gets quieter. And then this pressure valve, the flow valve right here, will drop on its own. Don't force it, don't try to push it down, because it's a safety feature. When that float pin drops, it's safe to open up your pressure cooker. Now, opening up your pressure cooker, you want to make sure you open the lid away from your face. So I'm going to turn it and open up away from my face. The nice thing about these pressure cookers, it has a holder, a lid holder in there. Now you can see my pasta sauce in there. Everything's bubbling away nicely. And we're thinking, okay, what's next? We have, let's see, cottage cheese. I'll figure out where my cottage cheese is. I've got mozzarella. I've got a little thing of cottage cheese. My helper is going to help me out with that a little bit. I'm going to put half of my mozzarella in here. I think it's in the drawer, honey. Should be on the left-hand side. Try to keep things in the refrigerator until I absolutely need them. So it's great to have a helper in the kitchen here. Now you can use ricotta cheese or cottage cheese, and when I was in college and made a lasagna recipe, thank you, sweetie, and I used cottage cheese, and somebody that had gone on their mission to Italy said, you know what, Italians don't really use ricotta a whole lot. They actually like using cottage cheese. So I just put a couple of dollops here into my lasagna recipe here, about half of it. And then I'm going to give it a stir. Remember, this is a half recipe. If you use the full recipe, it would be quite full, about 2/3 full. Then I'm going to add the rest of the cottage cheese. Just dollop it around. This saves so much time, in my opinion, doing the layering, and the oven lasagna takes 20 to 25 minutes to cook in the oven. I don't know if you noticed, but behind me there's a big black garbage bag. That's where my oven used to be. I don't have an oven in my kitchen right now. I will someday. I'm excited about that. So having an Instant Pot and using it to make lasagna is just such a lifesaver. Okay, I'm going to close it up. I'm going to let this sit for 2 minutes. That will help melt all of the cheese in there. Okay, this pot over here has 3 minutes left, and then you can see my sauce. I am so excited to show you this. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to bring this right back up. Hi. And if you have any other questions or comments or, yes. This right here is called the chop stir. I really like it. You can find it on Amazon. Some people have found it at the dollar store. Enjoy using that. These little dishes right here, I found them at the dollar store. They work great, and I've also used them for creme brulee. Made that in there. And I really like this garlic press. It's a Xylus garlic press. Really easy to clean. Just run it under water, then stick it in the dishwasher. Cleans really, really well. And back to a little bit more about myself. I started my blog, Frida Loves Bread, about 10 years ago. The reason I started it was I was doing bread making classes in my home, teaching people how to make bread, because it's all about touch and figuring out how much flour to add. And one of the ladies in my class said, well, you should put your recipes on a blog. And I said, what's a blog? I have no idea what a blog is. So 10 years ago, I figured out what a blog was all about and started putting recipes on there because my kids were getting older and they were moving away from home and going to college and wanted access to my recipes. So it was a really good way to put recipes all in one place. I like to be able to go on my site and find the recipe and have it right there on my tablet while I'm cooking. It's just a great place to have it. And I've enjoyed blogging for the last 10 years, and I started out with bread recipes. I have home comfort food type recipes, and then the last few years I started adding all of my pressure cooker recipes. What kind of noodles do I have? These are just the Western Family extra wide noodles, and I would use the cook time on the package, cut it in half, because some brands, my lasagna noodles might be thinner, some might be thicker. You don't have to use oven-ready noodles and stack them and layer them in the pan, just break them. And there is an old Italian, what do you call it? When you step on a crab to break your mother's back type of thing, whatever. It's not a myth or rumor or something. That if you break pasta noodles, there's 1,000 Italian grandmas wailing, crying. Well, that's just a rumor. It's just a myth. But go ahead, break your noodles. You can do that. It's perfectly fine. My pressure cooker has beat for my sauce, and I'm going to do a quick release, so I'll just hang in there first. Turn it away. Like I said, it's just really noisy for about a minute, and if it's your first time, make sure you're prepared for it. There's steam coming out. No sauce coming out, so it's looking good, looking great. This is the brand that I like to use. Centro, Sophie San Marzano, Italian type tomatoes. You can use any brand that you want. Just make sure that you measure out the liquid for the there's not more than a cup of that liquid when you strain the tomatoes. Getting quieter. So tell me what you could be making in your pressure cooker today. It'd be great to hear from you. Come visit me. Come see me on my site, FridaLovesBread.com. I also have a YouTube channel. There's videos on there. You can visit me there, or you can find me on my social media channels on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm getting used to Instagram. We'll get there. So I'm really excited to show you this pasta sauce and how much it makes. If it makes too much for you, you can cut it in half, freeze a lot of your ingredients, freeze the onions, freeze the cheese, freeze the garlic, so it's all ready for you to dump and just go. Because I'm sure if you're like me, it's 4:30 and you're like, what am I going to make for dinner? Well, you can make this sauce in less than 30 minutes. You can make this pasta in 20 minutes or less. So I'm going to turn the camera back down so you can see my lasagna and my sauce in just a second. Open it away from you. You can see the cheese is melted quite nicely. And
Gail is making beef and broccoli over rice.
oh, someone's making beef and broccoli over rice. Ooh, that sounds really good. Thank you for sharing that. So here is my lazy lasagna. You can see that it's very cheesy, very yummy, and it doesn't look sticky at all. Right there. So you just take it, put it on your plate. Nice, generous serving there. And then reopen that, sweetie. Be ready to put some Parmesan cheese on top. And since my husband's been a great helper for me today, this is what he gets to enjoy for lunch. Here you go.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Now, let's take a look at sauce. Again, we're going to open this away from your face. First thing you want to do is remove the bay leaves. A pair of tongs come in handy. You can see that right on top. Not sure where the other bay leaf is hiding, but it's in there somewhere. Oh, that's the basil. Okay. Looks a little bit watery on top, but when you stir it, it will thicken up nicely. Get all that meat. There's the other basil leaf. You want to make sure you take those out. You don't want them surprising someone in their pasta dish. So here's to do that. You can see how nice and thick this pasta sauce is. You can freeze it in your freezer for up to 3 months, or you can put it in a vacuum freezer and enjoy it in the freezer for like a year or longer. So put this back up. I want to thank the admins at Instant Pot 101 beginner group for inviting me to your 1-year birthday party and for joining us on this live cooking show with Frida Loves Bread with lazy lasagna and thick, easy spaghetti sauce. Enjoy. Have a great day.